What is up? Welcome everybody into the Crash Course podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins. I'm going to adjust this a little bit because that's a little bit too big. If you're looking on the video side, my screen's a little off here. There we go. Technical difficulties abound. That can be expected, right? We're first podcast back in a few weeks. So a few little bumps and bruises. One of these days I'll figure out the live broadcast, how to make it work a little bit more seamlessly. But we are back. Hope everybody has had a good last couple of weeks. And I know I am very excited about what this next week has in store and what this next month has in store for the sports world. Because, obviously, since we've been gone, the NFL has come back. College football's come back. Next week, B. Scott and I will get into the Big Ten a little bit more as he will be back. But this week, we've got the MLB playoffs starting up. We've got the NBA Finals getting ready to get underway. So a big week of postseason sports. Really excited to get into that. Like I said, B. Scott will be back next week. So excited to hear that news as well. And hope everybody has had a good last couple of weeks and a good weekend. Colts are 2-1, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. We have, like I said, the first big thing on the docket. If you're listening to this podcast on the audio side, it'll be tomorrow. If you're watching us live here on Facebook or watching the playback here on Facebook, it'll be on Wednesday. That will be the start of the NBA Finals. It's going to be the Lakers, who won in 4 games to 1 fashion over the Denver Nuggets. They will be going up against the Miami Heat, who won Game 6 over the weekend over the Boston Celtics. Kind of, honestly, it's funny because I originally did predict that the Heat, or I knew the Heat were going to do well in this postseason, and I was very shy to pull the trigger on selecting them, mainly because I felt like, maybe we should believe a little bit more in the Bucks. Maybe that, it goes that way as well. I think the original prediction at the beginning of the postseason was a Lakers-Celtics NBA Finals. We were very close to getting that, but I wish I kind of did pull the trigger on the Miami Heat because I felt like they were a good enough team to potentially beat the Milwaukee Bucks, even though obviously that wasn't their pairing. I thought they could beat the Boston Celtics. I felt like they were a very good team out of an Eastern Conference that, yes, had the Milwaukee Bucks at the forefront, but definitely it's not, it's not what the Eastern Conference was when LeBron was on that side, where it was literally just a stranglehold, and whatever team LeBron was on, that was the team that was going to the NBA Finals. Giannis wins the MVP, but again, the Bucks have kind of taken over for the Raptors as far as that team that has a good team every year, it seems like, but just can't get over that hump and can't will themselves into a title. So felt like that might have happened. I mean, you had 2 great coaches in this Eastern Conference Finals. You had Brad Stevens. And you had Eric Spoelstra. And that's one of the things I've talked with B. Scott with as well. The fact that, it's crazy to think that, when the whole big 3 was going on with Bosh and Wade and LeBron, Eric Spoelstra was brought in, and you kind of thought at the time, like, you might have thought of Spoelstra as just kind of that, we have to have a coach, so this is our guy. But he is obviously, his, tenure has extended very well past that LeBron, Wade, Bosh era, and he's shown us why. He's been a phenomenal head coach and throws his hat in the ring as being one of the better coaches in the NBA, and so gets that Miami Heat team to where it's was kind of unexpected to go. They were they were the 5 seed. So you got a 5-1 in the NBA Finals. So it's going to be really interesting. But I think overall, though, I think the LA Lakers are the clear favorite to win the title. They've won 4-1 in every postseason series, and that includes the fact that they lost Game 1 to the Blazers and Rockets and then won 4 straight in those series. You've got Anthony Davis averaging 28 points a game, LeBron 27 points, so that 1-2 punch is doing exactly what we thought it would do, and it's kind of what we thought was going to happen as far as the Lakers go, where, hey, as I feel like I've gotten smarter over the course of doing this podcast as far as, kind of looking a little bit closer and harder at trends and, going with the team that, hey, you know what? Maybe they've fallen on rough times. Maybe they've, not had the greatest last couple of weeks, but guess what? They did, they've won so much before. They've done so well before. So we might as well go ahead and pick them because they're a team that, has been there before, knows how to pull it together, and knows how to rally around themselves and get to where they want to go. And that's what the Lakers have done. I think it'll be a very good NBA Finals. I think it'll be a fun NBA Finals. My prediction, because I'm not going to go too deep into like breaking it down. You look at the Miami Heat. I feel like the Heat are a more complete team. But can they beat AD and LeBron? And I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you've got all these guys stepping up for the Heat. Goran Dragic has been doing well. Jimmy Butler. What did I say in the Pacers series, guys? I said if Jimmy Butler returns to Jimmy Butler form, the Heat were going to be successful, and that's exactly what they did. And then you've got guys like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo stepping up as well. So I think overall Miami is the more complete team, but it's kind of hard to bet against AD and LeBron and the numbers that they're putting up. So my official prediction is the Lakers in 7. I think that's gonna be what we end up seeing. I think it's going to be the Los Angeles Lakers in 7. They're gonna win the NBA Finals. But it's been a fun playoff. It's been an interesting playoff, full of some unexpected twists and turns. Obviously, didn't expect the Clippers to lose when they did. Doc Rivers is out. That was something that's broke today. It's been a crazy NBA postseason, and I think it's going to be a fun NBA Finals. I think the Lakers do take it home in 7 games. But the main part of the podcast tonight is going to be about Major League Baseball. The postseason was set yesterday. The quick 60 games in 66 days is now over. It's been a wild MLB season so far. And it's going to be an even wilder postseason. But before we get into that, we want to remind you, you can follow us at Crash Course FM on Twitter. If you want to check out the YouTube channel, we're trying to get some subscribers over there as well. We're at 15 right now. New episode of Memory Lane coming out on Friday, so you don't want to miss that. It is the second Big Ten championship game. Over the last couple of weeks, Ben and I have gotten into the Big Ten championship games, and so that's what we're watching right now. We, at the time when we conceived that idea, the Big Ten wasn't back yet, so that's kind of why we're getting into those. So make sure you go over there and watch, and that's also where you can find the podcast if you do miss it as well. Also, remember you can listen weekly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can find the Crash Course podcast every Tuesday. So just wanted to go through the socials real quick. And if you're listening on the audio side when this comes out, also you can go to our Facebook page, Crash Course Podcast, and watch the recorded version, or the live version every Monday. So make sure you check that out as well. But let's go ahead and dive in to the Major League Baseball playoff preview. These are the teams from the American League. You've got the Tampa Bay Rays, who won the AL East. You've got the Oakland Athletics, winners of the AL West. And the Minnesota Twins win the AL Central. Quick note before we get into this. These are the expanded playoffs. 8 teams from the AL, 8 teams from the NL. If you want to look at it, B. Scott and I did a season preview back at the beginning of the season, obviously back in early or mid-July, and we did an entire playoff preview, but we did it before they had announced, because they announced like right before the season started that the postseason was going to be expanded. So instead of doing an expanded postseason or instead of predicting an expanded postseason with 16 teams, we did a postseason preview with the typical year-to-year 5 playoff teams. So you can look at it as, hey, the following day or two after we did that podcast, our podcast was essentially obsolete. Or you can take it, glass half full and be like, you know what? Most of our playoff teams that we predicted got in because of that, with the exception of, I think, like the Nationals and some other teams like that. So, basically what it is, you've got the top 2 teams from each division, and then 2 wild card teams. So, excuse me. So you've got the Rays, A's, and Twins, all division winners. Then you've got the second best team from the AL Central. That's the Cleveland Indians. You've got the New York Yankees. They were the second best team in the East. And the second best team in the West, the 6th seed Houston Astros. Then you have the White Sox and Blue Jays in that order as wild card teams. Kind of crazy because the White Sox were slated to be kind of in that upper echelon of the bracket, and they instead are the 7th seed. So that's pretty wild. On the National League side of things, you've got the Dodgers. They were the best team in baseball. They were like 42-19, something like that. So they had a great season. Or 41-19, however 41-19. That's how the math works out. Braves, they were the East Division winners, kind of by default, but they have a good team. The Cubs also win their division, the NL Central, repping the Cubs today. Don't got to worry about that. B. Scott will be proud of the homerness. The Padres are the second best team in the West. They're the 4th seed. The second best team in the Central was the St. Louis Cardinals. They are the 5 seed, 6 seed Miami Marlins. So the Miami Marlins make the playoffs, which is pretty crazy. I'm pretty excited to see that, honestly. Those are that's a team that is actually I think makes me a little scared as a Cubs team. As a Cubs fan, because they actually are, a pretty decent team this year. Then you've got and it kind of also tells you about the state of the NL East. And then you've got the Reds and Brewers, both as wild card teams in that order, which is pretty crazy if you think about the fact that the fact that that's 4 teams. 4 of the 5 teams from the NL Central are in the postseason, so that kind of shows you how close that division is as well. So, kind of the overall reaction. First of all, you've got the A's and the Rays, who are the 2 wild card teams from last year in the AL. They've kind of taken that next step. You kind of wondered, both teams were close to beating the teams in front of them, the Astros and the Yankees. When was their time going to be? And that apparently is this year. You have, both of those teams have 2 of the best pitching staffs in the AL. The A's Chris Bassett is 5-2 with a 2.29 ERA, and the A's have the best bullpen in Major League Baseball. So that's pretty incredible. And then the Rays, even though their stats haven't shown it a ton this season, starting pitching wise, they do have a great pitching staff with Blake Snell, Charlie Morton. So they have been doing well as far as that's concerned. Although the big kind of question marks are the fact that both teams have kind of struggled here down the stretch as far as hitting is concerned, and that obviously with the kind of the heightened stakes that the postseason brings, with and pitching being so important, that kind of scares you. Being those 2 teams, what they can possibly do, but it's cool to see those 2 teams, the A's and Rays, take that next step and win their division. No surprises really at the top of the NL. This is kind of what we expected to see happen. We expected the Dodgers to win the NL West. We expected. Maybe not expected the Cubs to win the NL Central. I think I predicted the Reds to win the NL Central, but the Cubs are no surprise there as far as being a team that wins. And then in the NL East, I think we had the Braves going in. There was a chance, hey, we thought about the Nationals, thought about the Phillies maybe, but it was indeed the Braves that rose to the occasion, even despite the fact that their pitching has been a little bit suspect as of late. And then, let's get into some surprises. There are some teams, even, obviously with there being 16 playoff teams out of 30 total teams instead of 10 out of 30, you have some teams that you didn't really expect to make the postseason. But still, there are some surprises that maybe you wouldn't have expected to see this year. In the AL, that's the Indians and Blue Jays. Maybe not the fact that the Indians are in the postseason, but maybe the fact that they are in the 4th seed. That's pretty crazy. They do have the best pitching staff in the AL, led by Shane Bieber, who is 8-1 with a 1.63 ERA, which that is absolutely filthy. They also they also have Zach Plesac, and this is without Mike Clevenger, who they traded away to San Diego. So that's pretty wild, the team that the Indians have over there. And then you have the Toronto Blue Jays, who they have a good young core. I don't think they'll do much in the postseason, but this season they have been electric. They have Teoscar Hernandez, who hit 16 homers, 34 RBIs. He's been an absolute monster. They also have Bo Bichette, who's been incredible. Vlad Guerrero Jr., who has a lot of potential. So that Jays team, I think they were kind of looked at as a spoiler team, a team that could potentially trip up the Yankees and Rays, which I think they kind of did to an extent. But nobody really saw them in the playoffs. But the expanded playoffs kind of allows them to get some postseason experience going into the next couple of years, which will be really nice. And then as far as the NL is concerned, I mean, you've got who's been a bigger surprise than the Padres? We've always kind of known that the Padres were a good team. As far as, we knew they had good bats. I mean, Tatis broke out last year. They have Machado, Hosmer, Will Myers. They have a lot of great players, but, nobody really knew that their pitching was going to step up. Dinelson Lamet, they get Mike Clevenger in the trade from the Indians. So that Padres team, and really ever since the whole incident in Texas, which if you don't know, the most ridiculous thing ever, Fernando Tatis swings on a 3-1 pitch, I think it was, to hit a grand slam against the Rangers. The Rangers didn't like that because the Padres were up big at the time. Just a big, unwritten rule, garbanzo beans that was out there, and that's caused a big scuffle. And really, ever since then, it's been the Padres just absolutely crushing the baseball. They were tied for third in Major League Baseball with they were tied for third in Major League Baseball for home runs. Fernando Tatis had 16 home runs, which was second in Major League Baseball. And then how about, we'll go back to it a little bit. How about the Marlins? The Marlins fought through early adversity. They had the COVID stoppage at the beginning of the year. And so at the time, I think they had to put a bunch of players in there that really didn't, have a lot of Major League Baseball experience. They lose, their star pitcher in Sandy Alcantara for a while due to COVID. They trade away Jonathan Villar in the middle of the season. So they made a lot of moves that kind of make you scratch your head and say, how did this team make the playoffs? But they fought through. They made it work, and they're in the postseason. And heck, I mean, obviously they're playing the Cubs, so I don't want them to win their first postseason series, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did because they've been a surprise team this year, and they've definitely shown that they can do some good stuff. Biggest disappointment from the season this year has to be the LA Angels. They get a great season from Dylan Bundy because this was the thing. We knew they had great bats. They have Mike Trout. They have Justin Upton. They have Anthony Rendon. They have Shohei Ohtani, who I think was injured for a decent part of the year. And then they bring up Joe Adell. They have all these great bats, okay, so what were they going to do from the pitching standpoint? What were they going to do from the pitching side of things? They had Julio Teheran. They had Dylan Bundy. Those were kind of some subpar, middle-of-the-road pieces. But Bundy has a phenomenal year, and yet it still gets squandered because the Angels just can't get out of their own way. I feel bad because I like Mike Trout, like Joe Madden, obviously, but just kind of, I think if you're looking for disappointments this season, that's the way you kind of got to look. So not a great year by any means, for the LA Angels, and kind of disappointing to see them not really take advantage of the talent and really, honestly, the shortened season. I mean, you think about it, they have the Rangers, the Mariners, some other teams. The Astros had kind of a bad year. They had an opportunity to kind of rise to the occasion and sneak in there as the number 2 team in the AL West, but they weren't unable to do that. So kind of a disappointment there. So now it's time. Let's go ahead and get into our predictions for the postseason. But before we do that, let's get this quick word from Anchor. The Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Look no further than Anchor.fm. Anchor allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or mobile device, and will distribute it to other sites such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. On a budget, not only is Anchor completely free of charge, but will allow you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Anchor, it's everything you need in a podcast in one place. All right, so let's get into the Major League Baseball postseason. Wild card round starts on Wednesday, so that's what I'm talking about. Talking about that great weekend sports that we're about to have. Wednesday, you'll have the NBA finals starting up. You have Major League Baseball playoffs starting up. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to see kind of what happens along the way. So let's go ahead and get into it. Wild card round, that's a best of 3. And it's going to be the 1-seed Rays against the 8th-seeded Blue Jays, the 2-seeded A's against the 7th-seeded White Sox, the 3-seeded Twins against the 6-seed Astros, and the 4th-seed Yankees against the 5-seeded the 4-seeded Indians against the 5-seeded Yankees. So let's go ahead and hop right in. First, Rays over the Blue Jays. The Rays are the better team. The Blue Jays, even though they've had kind of a breakout year, like I said before, they kind of remind me, them and another team kind of reminds me of what we saw from like the Cubs in 2015, the Astros in 2015, where they were a young core getting their first kind of taste of postseason glory, but just not ready to make that next step. That's what we're seeing here. I think the Rays win that series relatively easy. And it's the same way I feel about the White Sox too. The White Sox are kind of like the 2015 Cubs in the sense that they're ready, but they just need to kind of make that next big step. And I don't think that happens this year. If it was the way it was originally set up, I think I still had the Yankees beating the White Sox. But yesterday, I think as of yesterday, the White Sox could have been the 4th seed, and had they been the 4th seed, I would have thought they might have had a chance against the Yankees, but against the A's having just such a good pitching staff, and me believing a little bit more in the pitching staff of the A's more than I believe in the pitching staff of the White Sox. The White Sox bats are better, but I think the pitching is the greatest equalizer, and that's what's going to be shown in this postseason. So the A's are going to beat the White Sox, I think, in that series, but I think the White Sox are going to be I think this year isn't a fluke. I think they are going to maybe make some moves in the offseason, get some pitching, and they will be back next season, but I do think the A's win that series. The Twins are the better team. The Astros get in because there had to be 2 teams from the AL West. The Astros are not the Astros we're used to. No Verlander, no Garrett Cole, obviously. Zach Greinke is kind of their only hope as far as the pitching is concerned. They do have some younger guys who have had some big years, but this will be their first postseason starts. They'll be playing a Twins team that's going to be kind of on a mission, and I think the Twins overall are just a better team, have a good pitching staff in Barrios and Kenta Maeda and all those guys, Miguel Pineda, who have really been having some great seasons, and then you have Byron Buxton, Josh Donaldson on the other side for being able to slug the ball. So I think the Twins will win that. Then you've got the Yankees and Indians. I think the Yankees win that series. The Yankees have been kind of shedding that mantra that we've kind of had them at the last couple of seasons where, if they don't hit a home run, they're not going to win. They've kind of done better about getting on base. They've gotten better about not striking out as much. And so I think, not to say that that's going to be the only reason why they win. I think, they do have a good pitching staff. They have a better pitching staff, or the starting pitching for the Indians is going to be good and is going to kind of slow down the bats a little bit, but I think the Yankees have the pitching to hang, and then also I think the bats are better for the Yankees as well, so I think the Yankees do win that series. Those wild card games are going to be a best of 3. That takes us into the ALDS, which is the typical best of 5. I've got the Rays over the Yankees. This was tough for me because the Yankees were my original pick to win the American League pennant. I looked back at the season series with there's a couple of series that I have where I just kind of looked back at what had happened in the regular season, and over the course of the regular season, the Rays have really had the Yankees number, and I think that's going to continue in the postseason. I think the Yankees have not had the kind of season that they've wanted to have anyway. It's been kind of a rough year. Maybe if this was a standard year where the Rays would have to, win 2 on the road in Yankee Stadium, then maybe I would say that, all the Yankees have to do is win 1 in the Trop, and, they're in good shape. But I think the Rays are just the better team, and so I think the Rays go on to the ALCS. And then you've got the Twins and A's. This one was a close one, but again, I think the Twins have the pitching staff to hang with the A's, and I think when you look at it from that standpoint, you then go, okay, well then who's who's got the bats, for, who's better as far as who the bats are concerned. And the A's bats have really struggled, which is surprising. I mean, they've got Matt Chapman, they've got Ramon Laureano, they've got some, they got Matt Olson, Marcus Semien, Tommy La Stella. They have some good bats, but they've struggled as of late. Like I said, Donaldson, on the other side there, Sano, you've got Nelson Cruz, you've got so many good bats for the Twins, and then they have the pitching staff to hang with the A's. I think that it's a series the A's could win potentially. Like I said, they have good arms in Mike Fiers and Jesus Luzardo, but I just think overall, I think the Twins are just the better team, and I think the Twins will beat the Athletics. So that leads us to the ALCS Best of 7, which, by the way, if you didn't hear, this MLB postseason, sorry if I'm a little bit scatterbrained today. The postseason is going to be all in a bubble, which I think was the right move because you're now intermixing all the different regions, and that was the whole point of not having a bubble for the MLB this season. Is they wanted to keep everything in kind of the same region. East plays East, West plays West, Central plays Central, and so I think now that you're kind of mixing everything together, it's right to have a bubble. Looking at the ALCS. It's the Twins and the Rays. And I thought about this one, and the pitching staff to me, as far as how they've performed this year, is relatively the same. You've got Jose Barrios, who has settled in. Kenta Maeda has had a good year. Miguel Pineda is good. They have a great bullpen in Trevor May. They have some great arms coming out of that bullpen. Sergio Romo. Guys that have postseason experience as well. And then you've got the Tampa Bay Rays, who have struggled to hit the ball as of late, but do have that great pitching staff. The pitching staff this season has not been what we're used to seeing. They've got, if Charlie Morton becomes what we know he can be, and if Blake Snell becomes what we think he can be, then great. And not to say that they haven't been solid this season, it's just they're not as lights out as they have been in years past. And so I think these two teams are relatively the same. And obviously, if the Rays want to win, they're going to have to, in any round, they're going to have to get their bats under control. So if they made it all the way to the ALCS, and they're, it's not because their bats are still struggling like they were at the end of the season. But at the same time, I just have more faith in the Twins than I do the Rays. So check this out. I've got the Minnesota Twins in the World Series representing the American League. I just kind of went with my gut on that one because I just think that those teams are very evenly matched, and I just have more faith in the Twins overall. I think they're a little bit of a better team, and I just don't see the Rays. The Rays are ready to take that make that next step. They have made that next step, but I just don't think that they're going to. I just don't think they're going to beat the Twins. And so, like I said, toss up, and I have the Twins over the Rays. Which obviously, because of the crash kiss of death, that may be the best news that the Rays can hear. Heading over to the National League, you've got in the wild card round, the Dodgers and the Brewers. Easy for that one. The Dodgers beat the Brewers. No suspense here. This was actually a matchup that I had originally when we thought the playoffs were only going to be 10 teams, the Reds and the Braves. I actually have the Reds beating the Braves this postseason. The Braves pitching staff has been there's been a lot of injuries. They haven't been as good as they haven't been as good as you'd like to see going into the postseason. The bats have been incredible for the Braves, but look, I saw a tweet today about the Reds pitching staff for the postseason. Trevor Bauer having an amazing year. Actually, I think just won Pitcher of the Month for September. You've got Luis Castillo, who's a monster, and then you have Sonny Gray. Like, those three pitchers can slow down the Braves' bats, and then I think overall the Reds, they have some great hitters who do have some postseason experience, and I think that can kind of shine through. They've got Votto, they've got Moustakas. They've got a lot of good bats in their lineup, and so I think the Reds upset the Braves, so a little bit of an upset there. And then I've got the Cubs over the Marlins. Like I said, I think it could happen that the Marlins win, but I think overall the Cubs just have more talent. Then the Padres over the Cardinals. The Padres have just been insanely good this year, and so I don't think that it's going to be a one and done postseason round for San Diego at all. In the NLDS, Padres and Dodgers. I picked another upset. I've got the Padres beating the Dodgers. Here's why. I looked a little bit into, this is one where I didn't really look into a lot of the postseason or the regular season meetups between these two teams. You've got Kershaw and Buehler. Buehler's struggled a little bit this year for the Dodgers, but I think he'll figure it out for the postseason. You've got Kershaw as well. But I think, the Dodgers are the best team. They're going to be the favorites. I think they are the Vegas favorites to win. But I mean, man, San Diego, they've got Dinelson Lamet. They've got Mike Clevenger, both having good years. Then you've got all these great bats in the lineup. I mean, the Padres are the team that can go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers and win. That's without a doubt true. And I think that, this is probably the worst matchup that you could have. Like, because for instance, if it was like, if let's say it were Reds Padres, I would say the Reds pitching staff has enough to slow down, to slow down the bats of the Padres. But it's just the Padres, I think, are just the better overall team. I think that, I'm going a little bit against the grain here. Not picking the Dodgers, who were my preseason pick to win the World Series. But I just think the Padres have rose up this year. Whatever the correct way to say that is. The Padres have been really good this year. They beat the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I said it when I was talking about the NBA Finals. The fact that there's just, sometimes you have that team that just can't get over the hump, and that's what the Dodgers have been. I kind of picked the Dodgers at the beginning of the season because it was kind of a meme. The fact that, of course, they would win the year that the season shortened, and that people will still find a way to take it away from the Dodgers because, it was a shortened year, what do you expect? And so that was the best way to kind of right the wrongs, is to have the Dodgers win. But I think the Padres are the best matchup against the Dodgers, and so I think the Padres wins. The Padres in the NLCS. Then Cubs and Reds, this was literally a toss-up, so I went homer on this one. I went Cubs on that one. B. Scott would be proud. Basically, it was a situation where the season series was kind of even. You've got, you've got Yu Darvish and Kyle Hendricks on the Cubs side of things, pitching wise, who can go toe to toe with Castillo and Gray and Trevor Bauer. And then you've got the bats who have come alive: Wilson Contreras, Chris Bryant's getting into a rhythm as far as the bats are concerned. Again, like I said, you get this far in the playoffs, you would assume everybody's bats are starting to come alive again. But I just think, it was kind of a toss-up, and so I went with the Cubs. I went with my favorite team. So that makes an NLCS of the Padres and the Cubs, and I just can't pick the Cubs to beat the Padres. The Padres are just too good this season. They've got the bats, they've got the arms, we've mentioned it. And the Cubs, I think, are good, but it's kind of going to be what we've, kind of come to expect from the Cubs the last few years is, they can win the series that they probably are supposed to. John Lester, I think, will have a good postseason. But as far as when it comes to playing a good team, because we saw it in 2017, they had enough to beat the Nationals, but they couldn't beat. The Dodgers. They couldn't beat the Dodgers or the Mets in 2015. The best team they've had was the year they won the World Series. This year, I don't think they'll win. I just don't think they'll be good enough to beat the Padres. The Padres have just been so good this year. Their bats are insane. And so I'm going to have the Padres and the Twins in the World Series. If that doesn't embody 2020, then I don't know what does, really. That is just the actual embodiment of the year 2020, is the Padres and Twins in the World Series. But hey, as crazy as that pick sounds, I'm actually pretty confident in that pick. I'm not, obviously, I'll get laughed at and people call me crazy when it's, the Yankees and Dodgers, or, it's some matchup we're kind of used to, but, I think that those are two teams that genuinely have a shot. And if not the Padres and Twins, Padres and Rays is just as likely to me. I think it's going to be any combination. My official prediction is Padres Twins, but I was I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rays Dodgers. Twins Dodgers, Padres Rays, Padres Twins. Those are 4 legitimate matchups going into the postseason, and that's just crazy. Most of those sound insane, but just based on like going into the season, they weren't predictions you would have expected. But I think Padres and Twins is going to be the matchup, and I actually have the Padres winning the World Series. And part of me was thinking, is it one of those things where a team has been good, and so I'm just kind of hopping on their bandwagon? And I don't really think it is. Like, I really think, the Padres have had good pitching. Their bullpen has been a little bit suspect. Obviously, that's not great going into the postseason, but their bats have just been so good, and it's hard to kind of go against this bullpen, this lineup that has Will Myers and Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado, and now they've got Austin Nola, and they've got Eric Hosmer. I don't remember if I mentioned him yet, but they have all these guys in that lineup who are so good. And so it's just really hard to kind of go against that, just because they're the Padres and they've never won before. Like that would be the reason why I wouldn't go with them. And I think this is the year. I think this is the year for the Padres. They will beat the Twins in the 2020 World Series, and that will kind of cap off a wild year of Major League Baseball. And that's the thing too. I think based on this season, if you were to expand this season over to 162 games, because what was the Padres' record this season? I'm interested to see, because I know obviously it's good enough for the 4 seed, but I was trying to see exactly where they were. I mean, you blow it up over an entire season. I mean, what we were worried about going into the playoffs this year and the regular season this year was the fact that, you're going to see these random teams get in because of the shorter season. I mean, the Padres went 37-23. That's a .617 winning percentage. First of all, that would have won the other 2 divisions. That would have been good enough to win any other division besides the NL West and the NL West and the AL East. So that's pretty incredible. But yeah, they won 6-7. They had a .617 winning percentage. You expand that over 162 games. That's a 100-win team right there. So I mean, and you look at the Twins. I mean, the Twins were, 600 winning percentage. That's, like a 95 win team, something like that. So, I mean, these are 2 teams that, weren't just kind of flukish and got in. I mean, these are 2 teams that had great seasons, and I think, a very legitimate pick to be in the postseason. So, yeah, that's my prediction. I think the Padres win the World Series in 2020. It's going to be a great story. It's a great season for them, a storybook year for them, and kind of, like I said, embodies 2020 because that's something that comes way out of left field. So there it is. Padres win the World Series. I've got the Lakers winning the NBA Finals. It's going to be an incredibly fun week of postseason sports, basically. I mean, you've got the NBA Finals. You've got Major League Baseball getting into the playoffs. This is the best time of the year, October. You've got all these playoffs, and it's got that added bonus of the NBA going on as well. So a lot of great things to be excited about. Like I said, next week, B. Scott will be back. We'll be diving in, I think, a little bit to the first 4 games of the Colts season, as well as, the Big Ten coming back and that kind of thing. So you won't want to miss that. Remember, you can follow us at Crash Course FM on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook, Crash Course Podcast. You can watch us live every week on Facebook as well. You can watch Memory Lane on the Crash Course Podcast YouTube channel. New episode dropping on Friday, the 2012 Big Ten Championship game. And then, of course, you can listen weekly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. We'll be back next week to talk some football. But until then, have a good week, everybody.